My advice has always been that emulate the good and ignore the bad. But don't forget the bad, only for the reason that you should not make those same mistakes which you did not like when you were a junior officer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, a podcast series by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. I'm your host, Sunny Panchori, and today we have the honor of speaking with someone whose career spans not only the lengths and breadths of Indian Army, but also global diplomatic circles, academic institutions, and strategic think tanks. It's my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome General Manoj Mukund Naravane, former Chief of Army Staff. General Naravane, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sunny, for this very warm welcome, and I'm very happy to be here on this platform and speaking to you on this very novel idea called FaceTime with Leaders. Thank you.
Great to hear that, sir. So your journey is a remarkable tapestry of leadership, 42 years in uniform, leading India's defense strategy at the highest level from commanding along the most sensitive borders to representing India in international delegations across more than 10 countries. You have been conferred with the Param Visisht Seva Medal, among other top military honors. But beyond the battlefield, you have also emerged as a thinker and scholar with a PhD on Naga traditions, a body of strategic writings, and now a fiction novel out with Penguin. It's rare to meet someone who has led in combat zones, guided boardroom discussions, and still makes time to mentor, write, and speak on global platforms. Truly a privilege.
Thank you. As I said, it's been a long journey in the Army, 42 years of commission service. And if you add the 4 years of training before that in the NDA and IMA, that makes it a total of 46 years in uniform. So it's a totally different, way of life. And it's a way of life which is perhaps not for everyone. It's not for the faint at heart, and only those who really like a life of adventure and varied, conditions, they only should really look to join the armed forces. And when I say army, I mean the armed forces, army, navy, air force, and so on. But it's been a tremendous journey, not just because I became the chief, but even otherwise, no matter what rank I would have retired at, I would not have regretted a moment of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are truly excited to explore that journey with you, sir. From defense to diplomacy, governance to global forums, it's a story with a lot to unpack. All right, so let's begin. Uh, General, sir, before we dive into the specifics, could you just take us back a bit? Not the titles or the ranks, but the journey. What were those early years like?
Well, as I was mentioning that, you always stop at the bottom of the ladder, and then through sheer hard work and a generous slice of luck. That's also very important. You know, go up the hierarchy, climb up the rungs of the army ladder. It's not always plain sailing. You have your ups and downs, and you have to weather those storms. And how you are able to adapt to those situations, I think, decides your fate and your future. In this journey, you come across a lot of people. You come across your superiors, your subordinates, and I think the armed forces are at a place where you don't have a choice on who your boss is going to be. Perhaps in CV Street, you can change jobs. In the army, you can't do that. Once you're in, you're in. And you have to make the best of the circumstances which are handed over to you. So you learn to adapt. You learn to get along with everyone in achieving the organizational goals, no matter what your personal likes or dislikes might be. And in this journey, as I said, you come across a lot of people, good and bad. good qualities and bad qualities. My advice has always been that emulate the good and ignore the bad. But don't forget the bad, only for the reason that you should not make those same mistakes which you did not like when you were a junior officer. You should not make the same mistakes or impositions when you become senior and rise up the hierarchy.
So that's such a grounded and honest reflection, truly. So, General Naravane, sir, your time in Nagaland and along the Arunachal Tibet frontier wasn't just about commanding sensitive operations, it was about understanding the region at a deeper human level. What really stood out to me is how that experience later shaped your PhD on harmonizing Naga customs with modern governance. That's such a powerful intersection of leadership and empathy. So, could you share how those deployments influenced your perspective, not just as a commander, but as someone engaging with identity, tradition, and peace building on the ground?
Well, as part of our deployment, we are always in these border areas, and possibly we are the face of the government, of governance, although we have no role to play in that. And when we go for our patrols, go to the border areas, obviously we come across the local population, and therefore the connect with the local population is always strong. We look forward to meeting them. They also look forward to our coming to those far-flung areas. And through these interactions, we learn about their hopes and aspirations, their trials and tribulations. As I said, that we are the face of the government or governance. Many times, people from the civil administration may not have gone so far forward or so often to those areas as would the army. So definitely, you get to know more and more about them. Especially during my tenure in Nagaland. And wherever we are posted, we make it a point to read up on the history and culture of that particular place to get an understanding of the people. And especially in insurgency-prone areas, winning the hearts and minds of the local population is a very important aspect of our overall strategy, what we call WAM. So when you get into those depths, then you realize that there are many aspects which rooted in tradition are actually hampering the forward movement of the society as a whole. To just give one example, it was the role of women in modern society. Till I started my PhD, there was not a single woman MLA in Nagaland, although Nagaland got statehood in 1963 and I did my PhD in 2023. They were by design kept out of governance and policy making roles. That may have had some logic in a certain point of time in the past, which I've expounded on in the thesis. But that logic doesn't stand anymore. So you have to change. If you have to progress, you have to change with the times. So that is how my deployment in various places actually affected the way I also think and way I thought I could give back by highlighting these issues so that the locals in Nagaland and the powers that be can take cognizance of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, diving deeper into the conversation, General Naravane, over the decades, you have not only led from the front line, but also represented India on the global stage, heading military delegations across continents. And in those rooms, across cultures, protocols, and power dynamics, you have seen how India's defense diplomacy has evolved. But back home too, within the ranks, you have witnessed a generational shift in values and expectations. So, how do you see that balance of projecting strength through soft power internationally while also preserving the core values that define our army internally?
Well, in the international arena, I think all countries value their partnership with India and see India as a very stable and reliable country to have relations with. That partly also stems from our very nuanced approach to our relations with other countries, which has two very strong pillars. namely that we have no extraterritorial ambitions. We do not covet anybody else's territory. So obviously that gives a sense of reassurance to other countries. And the second and more important, and that comes in that soft power part, is that we do not try to impose our will on others or our way of life on other people. It is not my way or the highway, which had been made famous by a former US president. So
Yes.
because of these two very interconnected aspects, countries the world over look up to us, look up to India as somebody who they can do business with, because we will always take very principled decisions and issue-based decisions, which are in the mutual interest and benefit, and not because we are part of some bloc or regional grouping whose party line we have to follow. So that makes us, a valued partner. As far as the second part of your question is concerned, coming into how the army has evolved over the last 40 years or so, I think the core values have not changed no matter what, because definitely uh, our ethos and the 200-year-old history and legacy that we have caters for these smaller changes. But definitely we are part of society as a whole. We draw rank and file, whether soldiers or officers, from society. And after 20, 30, 40 years in uniform, whatever you may serve, we go back to society. So we are not some alien entity. We are part of the country. So obviously, changes which take place in the society at large does have its little impact and fallout. So if social media has become, rampant in Civil Street, yes, we have the same thing within the army also, and how to control that, how to make sure that people don't carry mobile phones during patrols or ambushes. In fact, if you read about the Ukraine-Russia war, Ukraine intelligence agencies were often able to locate and pinpoint Russian troop movements through the locations of the mobiles. So, those changes we have to factor in as we go along. But the core values, they don't change.
Rightly said, sir. And it's powerful to hear how strategy and values can move together with time.
Yes, these changes, and that's why we have to be always on the ball. It's not that you can rest, but things are changing so fast, especially technology, that you have to be aware of these changes and try to stay ahead of the curve. You have to look ahead. You can't be playing catch up all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, General Sir, today's leaders face a battlefield that's often invisible. As you said, mobile warfare and like digital warfare, misinformation, constant psychological pressure. And it's not just about tactics anymore. It's about mental resilience and clarity in chaos. So, how do you think young professionals can prepare themselves to lead in this kind of environment?
I think whether the military or the civil field, whichever, whatever be your chosen path, whether industry or the medical profession or anywhere, I think all professions have their own set of challenges. It is not just that the army has challenges. Everybody has their challenges which are peculiar to their line of work and the environment that they work in. But within that, I feel that the two important aspects which are there, that is common across all fields, is your ability to take decisions under conditions of uncertainty. Decisions are never very clear cut. And that is why a decision is required. If everything was clear, your subordinates would have done it themselves. They come to you because the path forward is not very clear or not known, and they want guidance. And you yourself will always be in that position where you will also not have the full facts and figures. You will also have to take decision based on experience, based on gut feeling. But the important thing is to take a decision. And that is, I think, the hallmark of a good leader, that he can take decisions under these uncertain conditions. They may not be always right, but as long as the decision has been taken in a principled manner with the hopes and aspirations and the greater good in mind, I think you are less likely to go wrong. And even if 50% of your decisions are correct, I think you have done an excellent job.
Absolutely. And that's so grounding to hear, especially in a time where everything feels so reactive.
Yes, and also that we need not, dwell on the past. As I said, even if 50% of your decisions are correct, you should be happy. Those mistakes which you have made should not, weigh you down, but you must learn from them. As I always say, you must learn from mistakes and move on. Otherwise, you'll get bogged down and you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So, continuing our conversation, General Sir, after decades of shaping military strategy and national security, you have now brought that same depth into the boardroom. With a unique perspective, what kind of impact do you hope to create in this next chapter as a mentor, advisor, or leader in the corporate world? I would love to hear how you see your role evolving and the kind of change you hope to influence from the other side of the table. Also, share some insights from the book that you have written.
Well, you know that the army is not all about fighting. That is the first thing which comes to mind. But we are always preparing for a possible war. And in preparing from that, a lot of planning goes in. And I think that would be true for any industry when they are also preparing what should be their next product, what should be launched, what should be their marketing strategy, and so on and so forth. So we also have similar structures in place, right from a long-term perspective plan as what would be the future battlefield environment. And to cater for that environment, what should be the weapon systems that need to be in place for the procurement for a battlefield scenario of 2050 will have to start today, 25 years earlier. So that is the kind of forward-looking planning and visionary planning which has to be done. But if coming down to a lower grounded level, each and every man has to be clothed, he has to be fed, he has to be housed, he has to be provided with amenities, water, electricity. So all that is also part of our charter, unlike in CV Street, where once you go out from office, you're on your own. So we have to look after our organization in all its facets. And I think that is the experience we actually get to the table. And uniformed personnel should not just be seen from that, the fighting point of view, but the leadership and management qualities that they would have imbibed and the wide range of experience they would have imbibed over the facets which I have mentioned just now, which actually would be required in almost all industries. Even, like environmental aspects, when we go for our field firing or when we have to build new ammunition storage facilities or a road in a border area, we also have to factor in the environmental impact of that infrastructure development. So all these facets that are very much required in the boardroom, right from perspective planning to ethical decision making to ESG, all these are actually part and parcel of our training, which I feel is quite underutilized and underexploited. You also mentioned that I should say a few words about the book which I've written. So this is my first attempt at writing a work of fiction. During the course of my service, I have, of course, contributed many papers, military papers, to various academic journals, but they were all obviously related to the army on army affairs or strategic affairs. I also write a bi-monthly column for the print, which comes out every Monday. In fact, today, being a Monday, one more column would have come out, which deals with the sanctions that Trump has imposed on China and whether this trade war could actually become a shooting war. But that is, again, on strategic aspects. So apart from that, I said, let me delve into the world of fiction. and I've written this book entitled The Cantonment Conspiracy, which is a murder mystery, but set in an army background. But within this background also, these qualities that we have been talking about, duty, honor, izzat of the regiment, and how things pan out, and the army ethos and way of life, those lessons willy-nilly emerge. Although that was not the main reason for writing the book, it was written as a murder mystery, but these aspects also do come out.
So is it a completely fictional story, or it is based on true events?
No, it is a completely fictional story. It is in fact set in 2026.
Oh, okay.
1 year from now. Obviously, they have not witnessed any murder in a garrison or anything like that. But yes, certain locations, certain experiences which I've had in the army, those would definitely, have been taken from various places. Some ideas from various books I would have read over so many years, whether it is Arthur Haley or Wilbur Smith or whatever. So obviously, as I said, you're a sum total of your experiences. You're an individual, but you're an individual who has been bombarded with so many experiences throughout your life. So it is based on those experiences, but it is a total work of fiction.
Okay. As it is it out on stands? Is it available on Amazon, Flipkart, or somewhere online?
Yes, it is very much available. It is available on Amazon, and it has also reached the bookstores. So I would, in anybody who is fond of reading, can definitely, and who would like to get a glimpse, a jhalak into the army life. Yeah, so you'll be able to achieve two aims in one book.
Absolutely, and I'm the first one to grab this book as soon as possible. And to our audiences also, do not miss out on this book. You have to read it.
Thank you. That's very welcome encouragement for me.
All right, sir. So, that clarity of purpose of yours is so inspiring, and it's incredible how your journey continues to evolve with such intentions. I'm loving this conversation with you, sir. Further, I would like to ask you the values you upheld in military leadership, discipline, integrity, accountability, mirror the pillars of corporate governance. So, how do you see those principles translating into today's boardrooms? And in your view, where does corporate leadership still have space to evolve?
As I mentioned earlier, that these leadership qualities are not exclusive to the armed forces. They're equally applicable in whatever profession you're in. And in that, I think principled decision making and keeping the greater good in mind should always be at the forefront, especially in the corporate world, where it must be the interest of the shareholders which should guide whatever you make, whatever decisions you arrive at. And there'll always be occasions where there'll be conflicts of interest. And it is in those situations that the leadership traits actually come out, and the principled decision making comes to the fore. There will always be pressures. There will be pressures from above. Even in the corporate world, it is not that the CEO doesn't have a boss above him. So there will be pressures from above, there will be pressures from below. And I think the main role of a leader or of a board in this case would be to able to absorb these pressures from both sides, to act as a buffer and not let the work suffer, and thereby arrive at the most acceptable solution, which will be for the greater good and would benefit the maximum number of people.
Absolutely. And it's reassuring to know those timeless principles have real value in today's boardrooms.
Yes, that as I said, these core values actually don't change. It is the peripheral values which change. So honesty, integrity, hard work, loyalty, they don't go anywhere. That remain. Whether you have long hair or short hair, that is immaterial. So those are transitory things, but the core always remains the same.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so General Sir, before we wrap up, I would love to hear a bit about your experience with Directors Institute. What drew you to be part of this ecosystem, and how has the journey been for you so far, whether in terms of perspective, community?
Well, after retirement, I have been approached by a few companies, and I have not joined many of them formally. I do advise them in a very unofficial capacity once in a while, some phone call, or when they need a perspective on whether they're going along the right lines or not. But since the companies are approaching me and looking at a more formal role for me in their organizations, I thought that before I accept such a role, I must prepare myself and educate myself for that, not just joining them naam ke vaste. Our army culture is such that if we are somewhere, we want to make a difference. We just don't want to be there as another numbering, just to make the total or make the quorum. If you're there, you definitely would want to be able to contribute, and therefore I've joined as much to qualify myself as to educate myself. There is no end to learning. I did my PhD after I retired, so there is no reason why I can't learn new skills. So that is the background with which I said, let me try to upskill myself. And the Directors Institute was one such program that I came across. And having attended that introductory lecture, I was suitably impressed by the commitment that was shown, and therefore I joined up almost straight away, the very same day, in fact. And since day, the outreach has been quite phenomenal. Every query has been answered quite promptly. The programs like the one we are on now, FaceTime with Leaders, which is actually quite unique, and the way they are going about. As I said, I joined to skill myself, but I think the Directors Institute is also taking an interest in me, and as I'm sure for all the other people also, to make sure that they achieve the aims that made them join this program in the first place. So again, it's like a two-way street. We are joining to upskill, and the Directors Institute is providing us with the facilities, the wherewithal, and the encouragement to stay with this program and hopefully get onto the boards of a few companies.
It's great to know the Institute has offered you that kind of space and value, sir.
No, it's a very nice fact program. As I said, I was quite impressed, and especially by the dedicated follow-up. More often than not, that is what is lacking. I would say in India, even if you go to buy a car, till such time you're buying it, they're all over you. Moment you buy it and go home, they forget about you. So that is not how it has happened here. And the Directors Institute has been very much hands-on and following up, with full force and with the same vigor, and not just for the sake of obtaining a new client or a new enrollment, but actually wanting to make us successful.
Great, great. Let me tell you, General Sir, it's been a privilege having you on FaceTime with Leaders. The clarity, wisdom, and grounded strength you brought to this conversation, truly unforgettable. Truly. You have given us a rare insight into what leadership looks like when it's anchored in purpose and lived experience. Thank you for being so generous with your journey, sir.
Thank you. And I'm always, as I said, I'm always available anytime to anyone for whatever advice that people might need. Thank you.
Thank you once again for joining in. And to everyone listening, watching, if this episode moved you, made you think, or helped you see leadership through a new lens, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, talk about it, and join us next time for more powerful voices on FaceTime with Leaders by Directors Institute. Until then, lead with vision and stay curious. And of course, do not forget to buy this book ASAP, as soon as possible. Go and grab that book.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining in.